Around here, Dr. John Sappington is known as the Quinine Doctor. He was born in Maryland in 1776 and raised on the Tennessee frontier. His father was a doctor, and young John learned how to practice medicine by working with his father for 5 years. When John brought his wife, Jane, and their children to settle near Arrow Rock in 1819, he became the first medical doctor in Saline County. In the early 1800s, the practice of medicine was very different from what we know today. Doctors didn't understand things like bacteria and germs, and they thought the best way to treat most medical conditions was through bleeding, purging, and puking. Dr. Sappington took a different approach. In his studies, he learned that natives in Peru were using a bark of a tree called the cinchona tree to treat fevers. The active ingredient in that bark was something called quinine. Dr. Sappington knew that quinine could help prevent and even cure malaria, a disease carried by mosquitoes that caused cycles of chills and sweating and that was sometimes deadly. There were a lot of mosquitoes in Arrow Rock because it was located near water, and everyone who lived here in Dr. Sappington's day was bound to come down with malaria at some point. It was tricky making medicines from natural ingredients like bark because it was impossible to know if you were giving a patient too much or too little. He figured out how to put a precise dose of quinine into pill form, and in 1832, he began manufacturing Dr. Sappington's anti-fever pills. Soon, agents were selling millions of boxes of his pills throughout the southern states and western territories. Although Dr. Sappington's pills were proven to cure and prevent malaria, and he had plenty of happy customers, a lot of other doctors didn't like what he was doing. They said he was a quack because he wasn't using the popular methods of bleeding, purging, and puking to treat malaria. Still, the sale of the pills made Dr. Sappington one of the wealthiest men in the region. In 1844, he wrote The Theory and Treatment of Fevers, the first known medical textbook published west of the Mississippi River. In that book, he shared the recipe for his quinine pills, and although his family was worried that he was giving away the key to their fortune, he told them he and they had enough to support them comfortably, and that mankind had claims on him as well as his family. There's no doubt he was a wealthy man. He owned more than 4,500 acres of farmland, property that was tended by slaves, and had other business interests throughout the area. There is evidence to suggest that he was unkind, even cruel to his slaves, and he often interfered in the lives of his children. He even decided who they were going to marry. Yet, even though he was a very rich and powerful man, he lived out his life in a simple 2-story log cabin. His 2 sons, on the other hand, built opulent mansions, homes that Dr. Sappington called monuments to fools. In Arrow Rock, you can visit a museum dedicated to the Quinine Doctor, Dr. John Sappington. It's located next door to the Arrow Rock Lyceum Theater on High Street and curated by the Friends of Arrow Rock.